Alright, Francis Ngannou made history last weekend by pretty much defeating Tyson Fury. It was a very close decision. However, most people did score it for Francis Ngannou. I have seen people now kind of come out and say, hey, that they've scored it for Fury, so maybe that there is an argument, and maybe the fight is pretty close. But in my opinion, I thought it was clearly for Ngannou. Maybe you could score it as a draw. Maybe you could score a point for Tyson Fury. But I have seen a lot of people come out and say Tyson Fury has won. In my opinion, I had a 95-94 Ngannou. But we talked about that in the last video. You guys want to go check that out? I'm going to put it in the corner of the screen. But recently, Ariel Helwani, one of the best MMA journalists, and regardless of what you think about him, you can't deny that the guy is good at interviews and good at MMA coverage, right? He recently had Chael Sonnen on the show, and they talked about the whole Francis Ngannou situation, which kind of led to a heated argument between the two.
Why can't you say that this man got it right? Why do you have to be such a company man all the time and say...
And I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about what do I think Francis Ngannou's next move is. Did the fight flop last weekend? Was that going to affect his future? Or will he go to the PFL next? We're going to talk about all that and more, but first I want to remind you guys to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. We're trying to 20K by the end of the year. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, so you guys are going to help me with that goal. And yeah, sorry guys, I was kind of sick. I'm still a little sick. You guys might be able to tell, but I'm back. I'm here. And Ariel Helwani had Chael Sonnen on his show, right? So for those of you guys that don't know, Ariel Helwani has a show, the MMA Hour. Now, this show has been going on for 10 years. Credit to Ariel Helwani for being one of the, OG MMA journalists, so you got to show him respect. There's a lot of disrespect about Ariel Helwani. Guys, I'm going to be honest, I actually don't mind Ariel Helwani. I like Ariel. I honestly think he's the best interviewer in the game. I mean, he asks the questions that I feel like most fans want to know. Like, if you watch any of his interviews, you're like, this is what I was thinking. And I know maybe sometimes some of the questions can come off a little too personal, and sometimes he is very set in his ways and has his opinions. However, at the end of the day, I do like Ariel Helwani, and I think that he covers the sport very well. But he has Chael Sonnen on his show every once in a while. They had a show on ESPN once together where they started talking about the Francis Ngannou situation. Now, the argument really stemmed from Ariel claiming that Francis Ngannou made around 10 to 20 million, while Chael Sonnen saying that he made nowhere near 20 million, and that Ariel is stretching the truth and saying that maybe he got a little over 10 million, and basically pointing out the massive gap between 10 to 20 million dollars.
You said, no, it's not. Your words are what I'm challenging. You're the one that lied. And I said to you, and I'm quoting you. You said it's been reported.
Yeah,
you
on
could
the
bring
show.
up dog crap. You could bring up dog crap off the internet. I'll accept it. Pull it up. It's not been reported.
On the show.
Made that up.
Now, first, before I discuss the future of Francis Ngannou, I want to just say, basically, this whole debate is, did Francis fumble the bag? Now, I think most people have come out to say that they are wrong, but Chael is unique in the way that he is still saying that, yeah, Francis did fumble the bag, and that he should have stayed with the UFC. So we're going to talk about that first. Should Francis Ngannou have stayed with the UFC? Now, if you would have asked me a week ago, I had the answer, and I said, I think Francis should have stayed with the UFC, help cement his legacy. I think he had a shot at beating Jon Jones. I mean, you can't deny that. The dude has power. I mean, look what he did to Tyson Fury in hindsight. But he had a chance. I do think that Jon Jones would have wound up winning. However, he did have a chance. You can't deny the power that Ngannou has negates all skill. And I keep saying that because it's true, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're the better fighter. If he just knocks you out and lands that shot, you're going out. The guy has the hardest punch in the world. Like, literally, Guinness World Records literally has this up. However, Chael brings up a good point by pointing out Francis's inactivity throughout the time, saying he could have had some UFC fights, maybe could have signed a 4-fight deal, fought Jon Jones, done all that, and then fight Tyson Fury. Which maybe that would have been a smart move. However, when you're looking at the age of Francis Ngannou, you really don't know. Like, what if he loses one of those 4 fights? That Tyson Fury fight isn't there. And another thing to consider that Ariel, I thought, brought up that was a good point was the fact that Francis Ngannou did tear his ACL, so he wouldn't have really been able to fight during that time anyway. Regardless, Chael points out that he would have probably made around that amount for a Jon Jones fight, or maybe for fighting multiple fights in the UFC, which could probably be the case with pay-per-view. I mean, we saw how Jones versus Gane did, right? And I think that Jones versus Ngannou is 10 times the bigger fight, and I think that probably would have done a lot better than Cyril Gane versus Jon Jones. So we know that that fight did about 1 million pay-per-views, so maybe we're talking to the 1.5 range, maybe a little even higher. We're talking Conor McGregor numbers, right? I mean, the last fight that Conor McGregor had with Dustin Poirier, I think did 1.6 or so. So I think that the UFC could have gotten around that, maybe just under it, and Francis would have been the champion going into that fight, having pay-per-view points. So I think with that being said, I think that he could have negotiated a way to get around that much for a Jon Jones fight, seeing that he was already getting paid around $8 million for that fight, according to Francis himself, which is a good point. I do think that in hindsight, that Tyson Fury bag that a lot of people were expecting wasn't really there for Ngannou. And it was because Ngannou really didn't have much leverage in the situation. Like, he needed the Tyson Fury fight, right? If he didn't get the Tyson Fury fight, he would have just gone to the PFL, and it probably would have faded off into irrelevancy. That's probably what would have happened. He probably would have starched some guys in the PFL, maybe even lost to some guys. And I think he would have been one of those guys that you see on Twitter like, oh shit, he fought last night. However, going into this Tyson Fury fight really changed everything for him. And I think overall, though, I'm going to agree with Ariel Helwani. I think think, obviously, I don't think Francis fumbled the bag. I think most people would probably agree with this. Chael does bring up a lot of good points, right? And I really wanted to see him and John Jones, and yes, maybe you could have fought a couple times and then moved to boxing, but I don't think the UFC fumbled the bag either. I've seen a lot of people try to say this. I don't think that the UFC is really regretting this at all. At the end of the day, the UFC is such a massive corporal machine that I think really losing Francis Ngannou isn't really going to matter to them. That's like me stealing an iPhone from Amazon, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to move on, like, they're not going to miss him, and they have John Jones as the heavyweight champ, which is bringing a lot more pay-per-views than Ngannou did against Gane. So I think that this was kind of a win-win situation. I think, honestly, the UFC might look at this and say, hey, Ngannou's making his money, we're making ours, it's fine. They might not look at it like that because obviously there's going to be some salty feelings, especially how the whole situation was handled on both ends. So yeah, there are going to be some, you know, sore feelings here and there, but overall, I think that Francis Ngannou made the right decision, because when you consider not just this fight, but what this fight means to Ngannou, like, this means he's gonna have more eyes on him. You know, think about the merch he's probably selling. You know, he probably has his own website like most fighters do, probably having more sponsors now. There's talks of him fighting Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder. There's even talks of a Fury rematch. So you have 3 massive boxing fights there, and I think you should stay in boxing, but we're gonna get into that in a second. But who knows, maybe he could even wind up fighting Alexander Usyk, which sounds absolutely insane that I would actually give him a shot against Alexander Usyk. That's what's insane, dude. Alexander Usyk was a guy from cruiserweight, right? He isn't exactly the biggest heavyweight, and he is a shorter guy. I think Ngannou is taller than him, so it's really gonna be hard for Alexander Usyk to navigate in there, despite being a really good boxer. I could see Ngannou really catching any of these guys, especially after seeing that Tyson Fury fight. But what should he do next? Now, I think if you're Francis Ngannou, you stick with boxing. The money's in boxing. Saudi Arabia is paying you to box, so why not keep up the boxing? And who do I think you should fight? I think you should fight next Anthony Joshua. Now, Eddie Hearn has proposed this idea, and I thought it was a great idea, which really just shows how good of a promoter he is. He's saying that he wants to do Rumble in the Jungle 2 in Africa, of course. Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. That is a big fight, especially in Africa. You could probably sell out a stadium in Africa with that fight, and that is totally a winnable matchup. We've seen Anthony Joshua really decrease in skill over the past few years. This isn't the same Anthony Joshua that was out there really being reckless. This is a guy that likes to stay behind his jab. But the thing is that Anthony Joshua kind of is a better brawler than he is a boxer. Like, it worked against Andy Ruiz, like overweight Andy Ruiz, I should say, that he self-admittedly really didn't train for that fight, right? We saw him gain a lot of weight, literally coming off of a high of being the heavyweight champion, and wasn't really in his best shape, and easily outboxed him, yes, but that kind of also hurt him. It made him a lot more patient. It made him a lot less willing to pull the trigger in those moments. And I think I could see him trying to outbox Ngannou, but wind up getting caught. We've seen him get knocked out by Andy Ruiz. We saw him almost get finished against Alexander Usyk. And Ngannou definitely hits harder than both those guys, if we're going to be honest. I would just say that Andy Ruiz probably has a speed advantage, but other than that, Ngannou hits like a truck. And I think if you do that fight, collect the bag. Hopefully there's no rematch clause, and hopefully they don't try to pull that type of stuff. And then maybe next he could fight a Wilder. Now, I think you should pick Wilder second, because Wilder is the riskier matchup, right? I think if he's going to think like a business guy, start with Anthony Joshua. He's a little bit of an easier fight. Still a challenge, of course, and is not at all 100% guarantee win for Ngannou. But Tyson Fury fight Usyk, there's probably going to be a rematch clause in there, even though Tyson Fury says that there isn't going to be. They're probably going to have some sort of rematch clause, so then maybe in the meantime, fight Deontay Wilder, and then wait for the winner of those fights, whether it be Usyk or whether it be Fury. I think it's going to be Fury, to be honest, but that last performance does make me want to, you know, kind of go back to the drawing board and think about that prediction a little bit more. However, if it is Fury, then you have that massive rematch against Tyson Fury, or if it's against Alexander Usyk, you have just fought the top 4 heavyweights of the last 5 years, which would be absolutely insane, and especially if he beats all of them. Like, that would just be insane. And I know he didn't technically beat Fury, but come on, dude, we know he basically beat Fury. And yeah, I think Francis should say, look, I'm done with MMA. Who wants to get fucking kicked? Who wants to get taken down? Who wants to grapple? Let me stay on the feet, use my hands, use my power. I saw what I did to one of the best heavyweights, if not the best heavyweight right now. What can I do to these other guys? What can I do to a guy like Derek Chisora even? That's probably a bag from a Dillian White too. Like, I don't know. Those are all matchups that you could probably get paid a decent amount of money for. But my prediction is I think that Francis Ngannou will stay in boxing. I mean, the money is hard to deny. And I think he's going to fight Deontay Wilder. I think he's going to wind up fighting Deontay Wilder. I think that's the big fight right now. Everybody's talking about it. However, I do think that as a businessman, I think you should probably go for the AJ fight in Africa. Maybe he does it soon. He didn't take any really damage in this fight. Maybe he goes to Africa in January, comes back in April for Deontay Wilder. I've heard that Saudis offered him a fight for March, so they're probably saving Deontay Wilder for that. Maybe you squeeze one in between them, but it would be tough. Maybe you just wait till March after all. Although there are rumors that Saudi is putting on the Usyk and Fury fight, and they want maybe Deontay Wilder and Ngannou as a co-main event, which would be insane. I don't believe it. I'll believe it when I fucking see it. This thing has been talked about for this whole year. But guys, Ngannou is a fresher breath of boxing, and I will say this because being the MMA guy, he has balls, and he's willing to fight any boxer they put in front of him, which is great because we don't usually see this from boxing anymore, which is sad. But overall, guys, I hope Ngannou really continues with the boxing. I think he could actually do very well, and who knows? I mean, if he beats these guys, like, we're then all of a sudden talking about who's the greatest heavyweight heavyweight of all time at boxing. Like, if he beats all these guys, like, we have to talk about it. But obviously, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you guys think that Ngannou's next move should be? Let me know in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear from you guys. You guys have been showing crazy support on the video, so I thank you guys very much. We're gonna start, uploading a little bit regularly. It's been a little bit slacking, mixed with the sickness, mixed with no UFC, mixed with hardly any content being available. You guys are the best fan base in MMA. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.